Hey YouTubers, this is Common Man Thoughts again, talking to you more about some stuff you can do in the kitchen. My last video involving the kitchen involved basic principles of cutting onions, garlic, and tomatoes. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most important tools that you have in your kitchen, and that is your cutting board. In particular, care for your cutting board. In order to care for your cutting board, a wooden cutting board, it needs to be, the conditioning needs to be kept up. Now this is a relatively new cutting board and I have not finished with the conditioning aspect of it. I've got about 2 more sessions of what I'm about to show you. The things that you need to condition or to maintain your cutting board's conditioning are an oil and something to wipe the excess off. Now, you can buy oil made specifically for this. The oil that's made specifically for this is a mineral oil that's called food grade. My problem with mineral oil is that it's still a petroleum product, and while it's food grade and it's non-toxic, and I don't have a problem with using petroleum products at all, the problem I have is the idea of putting a petroleum product on a food surface. That just kind of bothers me. Most food oils are going to go rancid and kind of cause the board to stink. I like to use coconut oil. This is an oil that maintains freshness. It's also pretty good for you. Now, coconut oil is pretty hard and you need to have a good tool to scoop it out. I like to let it sit in a bowl and turn into a liquid form. It doesn't take much for it to become liquid. And so that's what I've done. I actually did this in the microwave to make it quicker. All right, so I'll show you what to do. It's very, very simple. Simply rubbing oil into wood. Now, this needs to be done with a new cutting board, about anywhere from 4 to 6 different coats, with enough time between each coat to dry. So usually once a day for about a week. Now when it comes to a cutting board that you use, this should be done about once a month with just a simple coat. All right, with a cutting board that's not new, that you've been using. All right, so each side is going to be about a teaspoon or so of oil. So I'm not going to measure it, I'm just going to estimate it. Anyway, that's coconut oil that's been reduced to liquid form. Now, I'm just going to simply rub it in with the grain. All right. See? Just make sure that it all gets nice and soaked. Now, coconut oil is a wonderful coconutty smell. And it makes a nice odor on the cutting board, and it really doesn't go rancid. So, now, the manufacturer of this particular cutting board suggests using any type of kitchen oil, but having seen kitchen oil sit out for a long time and how they smell, I don't want that on my cutting board. Now, if your cutting board does start to smell, and it is going to start to smell because of the stuff you cut on it, great tool. Got a lemon and salt. Throw a little bit of salt on the cutting board, squeeze the lemon on it, and squeeze some lemon juice on the salt, and start scrubbing. That will deodorize, if you will, the cutting board without having to use any sort of harsh cleaning solutions. All right, so I've got that well rubbed in, and my hands are all oily, but that's okay. I'm just going to wipe the excess off. All right, do the same thing on the other side. Just pour out the rest of the oil. And just simply going to get it up into the drain groove, what I call it. And I'm just going to rub it in with the grain. Or you can do it in circular motions. I find it easier to do it with the grain. Now, if you don't like your hands getting oily, you can use, rubber glove or whatever. I don't mind the oil. A little soap and water will take it right off. Now I believe I have 2 more coats to do on this particular cutting board. This particular cutting board is a bamboo cutting board. I've never used bamboo, so let's see how it turns out. Wiping off the excess oil. There we go. As you can probably see, I've got another cutting board right on over there. That one is an old cutting board. That's actually the one I used in the last video. That cutting board has been a trusty and faithful cutting board. This one is going to be primarily used for raw meats, whereas the other one is used for vegetables and breads. This side will be raw meats, the other side will be cooked meats. All right, there you go. Treating your cutting board. Now, if you buy a plastic one, of course, or silicone, I guess it is, then you don't need to worry as much about the conditioning. But on the other hand, wooden cutting board, if you treat it well, will last decades. Whereas a silicone cutting board is going to get cut up. Okay, how to condition your cutting board. Maybe you didn't know you need to condition it. Keep it conditioned. If you got an old cutting board you never conditioned, never fear. It's okay. Make sure it's clean, condition it. Spend about a week every day coating it, rubbing it in, letting it dry, and doing it the next day. All right? So, how to keep your cutting boards conditioned.